forget to record.
Yes. Okay. Welcome to this week's presentation by me, Luke. The presentation I'm going to give today is because recently the market has been very tumultuous, and I was thinking very much what could be like a safe stock to invest my money in without having too much of a downside risk, but do have upside potential. And I was walking around through Amsterdam and through Netherlands, and I thought, like, what are now the companies that will survive a big recession properly? So the first thing I got to was mass merchandisers. So this presentation is about mass merchandise. Specifically about the company Ahold Delhaize. I don't know if people are familiar with it. It's quite a large company. It has big presence in Benelux, but it also has a lot of exposure in the American market, as we will see later. But this is a stock listed on the Dutch stock exchange, and of course derivatives on other exchanges. So what kind of company is this? This company is quite a big company, which owns a lot of brands, primarily supermarket stores, but also e-commerce companies. That's what makes it quite interesting, because it's not only mass merch. So, for example, you see here some of the companies that they own. If you look at the Benelux market, which I primarily focused my research on, Albert Heijn is the biggest supermarket in Netherlands. The Delhaize is a big one in Belgium. Gal & Gal, which you see here, is a supermarket for booze. And bol.com is the biggest e-tailer of the Netherlands, which does not only consumer electronics, but also fast-moving consumer goods. Like, for example, you can also buy washing powder there, but also laptops, computers, cameras, books, everything. It's actually kind of like the Amazon of the Netherlands. It also has a marketplace with about 50,000 partners, I believe. I will show you the numbers in a bit. So that's also included. And if you look at here, you see Ethos. This is cosmetics and so on. And the other companies are present in America, most of them. And of course, you see also a Greek chain here, but I don't know how to pronounce that name. So what is a mass merchandiser? That's a particular retailer or specific retail store, and it's commonly known as having a wide variety of assortment. So basically, you can get very many different mixed goods for different consumer segments at this place. And yeah, for example, a supermarket is a mass merchandiser. If you look at this company, Ahold Delhaize, it's present primarily in America and in Europe. The US total net sales, I will show you, it's already on this slide. It's 45 billion and it's 30 billion in Europe last year. So that means that the American market for them is a bit bigger than the Benelux market, and the derivatives like Greece, Serbia, Romania, and Czech Republic. And they also have joint ventures in Indonesia. They serve 55 million customers per week, online and in store. And they have a wide selection of brands and a lot of stores, also physical retail stores. What is most interesting about this company is that it was growing quite well in 2019 and 2020 versus previous years. And last year it has stagnated a bit. The boost you see in 2020 is primarily due to lockdowns and people not being able to eat out in restaurants. So the value of the supermarket goes up, and other competitor stores that have been closed down. So a chunk of the revenue went that way. But before that, the company was also already growing. And what is quite interesting about this company is that they are not so big yet in online. So the biggest part of their revenue, which is not very in line with market, comes from the stores. So it's 67 billion from the stores and 10 billion from online. So there's quite a lot of room for growth in the online segment specifically. And I think this company is very well positioned to be able to gain market share online rapidly, which I will show you in a bit why I think that is. Let's see. So how they work with, they have a lot of stores. For example, if we zoom into Albert Heijn, this is the supermarket, which is also a pickup point for the other shops. So for example, if you order something at bol.com, you don't necessarily need to ship it to your house. You can also pick it up in the Albert Heijn store. So this is some synergy effects between those two. And later I will show you how that will probably be integrated into the future. So the most exciting thing about buying this company is that you buy the #1 supermarket in Netherlands, and you buy the #1 online retail platform for consumer goods and fast-moving consumer goods and electronics. Plus, you have also some in alcohol, some in cosmetics. So you have very wide exposure of markets. Which I will show you how big they are. First, some trends. Consumer price index. These are the numbers. How it's going up. It's going quite rapidly now, and the latest numbers are not yet in for their specific price groups. So I only have the figures till December 21, but we can expect this graph to go up. So their goods which they are selling, they are getting more expensive. So it is kind of also an inflation hedge to invest into this company. If you look at how they spend in the customers in this market, it's the grocery market is 10 billion. And the other part that's like non-grocery is 37.9 billion. So it's about a 1-to-4 ratio. So what people buy in these segments, only 20% goes to grocery. So the other markets that they have is quite a substantial amount. The trends that you see in this market is that there is a big switch since the pandemic, and it's not very much recovering yet, is that there's a switch to at-home consumption. So people do not eat out as much as before. They prefer to buy goods in the store and consume it themselves at home. So there's less expenditure outside of the home, which benefits this company. The e-commerce growth is quite substantial within the company. Every year on year, it goes up about 30 to 40%. So the switch that we saw before, where the primarily chunk of the revenue of the company comes from retail, is now moving towards e-tail, and it's going more rapidly than before in this market, as well as with other consumer electronic companies. The switch to e-commerce is going up, and I think they are very well positioned in that segment as well. Yeah, it's a value-driven market, so it's not necessarily a price market, but people do look for money for value. So it's I would say that the price, it's very price-driven, but that's not the only thing. They also look for quality, the consumers. If we look at market share, Ahold Delhaize has about 35% share in supermarket. This is Netherlands numbers, where Albert Heijn is the biggest one. They own about 35% of this market, and it's very saturated between Albert Heijn and Jumbo. And the other ones that are substantially smaller, there is expectancy that these will consolidate into the other companies. So, for example, they have recently bought this supermarket that you can see here called Data Mart. That is now actually also Ahold Delhaize. If you look at e-tail, which they own bol.com, which is kind of like the Amazon of Benelux, let's say. This is actually the biggest online e-tailer in Netherlands. So it's far bigger than Amazon. For example, Amazon in Benelux is not a threat at all. They are very small compared to bol.com, Coolblue, Zalando, Weekamp. They own the market. So what you see in other countries, that Amazon is rapidly destroying the market. You can see that, for example, in Germany very well. Here in Benelux, it's not it's not a topic right now. And also, what you see in Netherlands is that the people that shop online, they are very driven to buy at the same place. So, for example, 40% of the consumers is prepared to only shop at one specific place. So they don't switch much once they know the interface of the e-commerce company that they shop at. They automatically adapt this, and they find it easier to use and more easy to use. So it becomes like a habit. They stay at the same place, and they have their accounts there, and so on and so on. And also here in this market, in the e-tail market, more consolidation is expected in the future. This is because there are so many players, and it's quite saturated market, of course. So only the big ones will survive. Sorry that this slide is in Dutch, but I could only find the info in Dutch. What this shows is that in other countries, Alibaba, Amazon, they are quite dominant. So you can see, for example, in the United States, Amazon owns 44% of the market. In Netherlands, they are not even in the top three. The Netherlands top three is Bol, Coolblue, and Zalando, and they only, for example, Bol only has 12% of the market, which is quite small. So there's quite a lot of room for growth there. But Amazon is not a threat in this market. Here you can see what are the biggest online players in Netherlands. So you see that Amazon is on 373 million net sales a year, while bol.com is like 5 times as big. That's only Netherlands numbers. So if you also look at how the customers shop, around 3 or 4 of Dutch internet shoppers, 75% of Dutch internet shoppers go every month to bol.com, and only 25% goes to an Amazon website of online shoppers. So the exposure of Bol is much bigger. And it's also expected that Bol will go to the stock market as a separate company you can invest in the future. Growth, if we look at where the growth from this company should come from, is from the real omni-channel experience. Everybody talks about omni-channel, yet in reality, there's not many companies that have this experience fully embedded. For example, if you look at MediaMarkt, which has an online website and stores, it is very common that you go to the store and a product is not there, or that you go to online and that product is not present in the store, and they can also be priced differently. So the real win for this company lies in the omni-channel approach, where everything that is in store is available online, and vice versa to the pickup points. And they also have invested in the supply chain, so they have included delivery into their own supply chain, so they don't need an external company for that. They run it themselves. So that is where the real power of this company lies, and where they have invested into heavily. That's also the reason that they bought bol.com, that they can integrate online shopping in many different product categories with the delivery at the other stores, like for example, the supermarket. And in the future, also in store, they want to let people be able to order it there, so that you go to the supermarket and you order the TV and it comes from bol.com and it's ready for you at the pickup point. These are all future developments. Of course, we are a long way from there, but why this company can grow is because, one, they have the retail space available, so they have the physical stores a lot, and online they have the biggest player with a gigantic marketplace behind it, like Amazon also has, of like about 50,000 plus partners that offer products to the platform of bol.com. So yeah, this is the main pointer here, is that they actually have the entire supply chain network to be able to carry out that omnichannel approach perfectly. The reason that it's way more difficult for MediaMarkt, for example, is because they have external partners for everything. This company has a lot of in-house brands, which are directly sourced from the farmers, for example, and when you look at food. They make their own brands, and they have the other subsidiaries available to be able to also have consumer packaged goods readily available. Their warehouse and distribution is a supply chain that is in-house, so they have their own drivers, their own trucks, etc., etc. So they can rapidly deliver their products to the customer or to the pickup point. But actually, they are even talking about that soon. That will be even within 15 minutes, you will have your food at the door. This is what they're working on. So the network they have, the company they have built here. So by buying these different companies and integrating them together, they actually have the whole chain themselves, which makes them very flexible, and probably it will be like very rapidly delivery in the future, and we will see a big change in the market approach of home delivery. So now you should be very happy if you have the product the next day. We expect that this market goes to same day delivery or even within the hour. If you look at this company, it's still growing. Last year was not much better than the year before, but it's a profitable company, and it's currently available for a PE of 12. It took a little bit of a beating due to the turmoil in the market with inflation and so on. But it's right now quite favorable price available on the market. The reason it slowed down also a bit is because their Q1 2022 was not as good as expected, but they have already made an announcement that they expect the full year to end on a plus. I'll show you that news item in a bit. So as you can see, the company was growing pretty well the past few years, and in 2021 they had more or less the same net sales as the year before. So in 2020 they had that positive impact of the COVID. They managed to keep it in 2021 despite the lockdowns being removed. So it will be very interesting to see where this company goes to next year. And if you look at their online sales, they are growing quite rapidly, where 2 years ago it was only 5% of the revenue was online. That has doubled in 2 years, and there's an expectancy that this will rapidly increase moving forward. Yeah, this is just a split between US and Europe. US is bigger than Europe, but yeah, both are quite large markets. And if you look at where they get their sales from, this is also quite interesting. For example, in Europe, United States, it's 30% own brands, but if you go to Europe, it's almost 50% their own brands where their revenue comes from. So they have a lot of own brand products which are selling quite well and which have the better margin, of course, versus the other brands that they have to buy from the other companies. So this is a very good revenue stream inside this company. And you can see that they sell most of their products in fresh food. Non-food is only 10% in US, but in Europe, that's 25%. And this is also the emphasis that I wanted to put on here, is that from this other subsidiary they have, the bol.com, they are getting large revenue streams in there, which they can at some point copy to US and also grow more in that segment in US. Looking at financials, so the stock is now available for PE of 12.38. It's a profitable company. It took a beating. It went down from about 31 euros to 26.86 now. And if you look at the past 5 years, this company has always been growing on the market. It pays also excellent dividends, and every year, 10 years in a row, they've always increased their dividends over time. So they've never reduced it. It has always been more. Looking at this, here you can see the gross income of the company, which is still growing, but flat 2020 versus 2021. So yeah, the main question is here: how will 2022 look like? The forecasts look good, but of course we will still have to see this. Anything can happen at this point. But if you look at the supply chain with their own brands, they are pretty well positioned to have another excellent year, because they are not so very Asia dependent on the sourcing of their products. Looking at the financials of this company, the net income has substantially increased past year, previous years, so they are doing something better there, and it has a healthy EBITDA, this company, and also always positive earnings per share. One thing that is a bit problematic maybe is the long-term debt, which is a little bit high. If you go to the debt ratio, it's 0.7, which is slightly above market average. But this company is in fact a profitable company. It's quite a large company, so I don't see it as a huge problem right now. But we will have to see how that increases over time, because the debt ratio has always increased as well over the past years. Yeah, so the latest news is they had a little bit of a Q1 beat. Their performance in Q1 was not as good as they forecasted it, but they already had a new meeting for the new forecast, which expects recovery for the rest of the year. So there's already positive news coming out from this company. Another additional thing to see is that probably they think their shares are also quite cheap right now, as they're doing 1 billion share buyback in 2021 and in 2022. So that's also something to keep in mind. And I think that is already it. So this, in my view, is a company that is quite a safe bet. Huge player here in Benelux, also quite substantial amount in US, and there's a lot of room for growth, especially if they manage to execute their omni-channel approach, which they have been investing a lot in during the past years, 10 years, by buying the right companies and integrating them with each other. I think it's very well positioned for the future, for what shopping will look like in 5 to 10 years. That's it.